Like to give coins.
I have an ever-growing stack. This one is super shiny. Is this 2024? Oh, it is. Wait, is that? Wait a second.
Is that my face on there?
Who's on the quarter? Washington,
know.
right?
I don't get quarters anymore.
Tell me who that is. That's a this year edition quarter, but who is that?
That's P. Diddy.
That's not the stuff.
No, that's George Washington. Yeah.
No, this is the original picture that used this on all the quarters.
Yeah.
But look at the pictures of.
It's just flipped. It's flipped, and he has.
Look at the back of the hair, though. The back of the hair is different. Really?
It's still long.
When did they change that?
I don't know.
Oh. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the best movie podcast in the East Texas area. I'm going to go ahead and proclaim that now because I don't know of any other movie podcasts in the area, so it's us.
Doxing us once again.
I'm sorry.
Continues to dox us, man.
I can't help it, man. I wish we could.
Go ahead and give your address and your social security
My
number.
address is forget it.
All right.
You always remind me. I appreciate you keep me, on my toes. This is another episode of the Top 10 Movie Podcast with Mike and Mulley. I am him, and that is Mulley.
Yes, sir.
What's good, man?
What's up?
How are you, man?
I'm good, man, but sometimes life can be a disaster, my friend.
Oh,
And that heads us into this new movie list, Top 10 Best Disaster Movies.
Now, what I remember you saying in pre-pro was you have 11. And so I guess I'll go ahead and tell you guys this. I'm going to allow it. I'm not even going to fight him this time because this past week has been so busy for me that I actually forgot to do my list. So this is really just going to be an 11 all Mulley. Hopefully I'll have some things to say in between.
No, you will. And here's the thing. It was supposed to be top 5 disaster movies for each of us. He would do 5. I would do 5. I came over prepared. I came with 11 just in case some of them overlapped from my list onto his. Because there's kind of a universal list when it comes to disaster movies. Like there's a lot of the same ones occurring on the same list when I did my research. So I thought I'd just put more than enough on my list to cover whatever, if we had any duplicates by him. Ends up we have no duplicates by him because he was so busy this week. But we have more than enough movies on our list, on my list alone, so we can mutually discuss and talk about whether these movies should be on the list or not, and kind of where they rank for us and where they hit for us. So
now, even though one of us doesn't come prepared, one thing we'll never do for you guys is shortchange you. We're always going to find a way to give you at least 10.
There we go.
We'll figure it out.
We are. We never. If we're on the podcast, we're not shortchanging them.
That's true. Now, another thing too about this list is I remember when we agreed to do 5 and 5.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, are there even more than 10 disaster movies?
Right. Well, that's where we need to get. That's a great segue because we need to get into what is a disaster movie. Now, my mind typically goes to city destruction, world destruction. That's kind of where my disaster movie things fall. But it can fall into a different category. Like, for instance, one of the movies not on the list, but maybe should be on the list, is Independence Day. And why is it on the list as one of the top 10 disaster movies of all time? Well, it certainly has a lot of disaster in the movie. There's definitely world-breaking, cities exploding. There's carnage. There's disaster throughout all different kind of cities, both shown and implied in that movie. But in my mind, I kind of consider that more an alien sci-fi movie than I do a disaster movie. But there's certainly disaster in the movie, and it's a big part of the movie. So where is our definition of disaster? So that's part of it, is that if we have a broader brush of what disaster is, then a lot more movies start to qualify for that. Initially, me and my brain, the thing that I go to when I think about disaster, and think about your answer for this, is I honestly do think those earth-destroying movies, those city-leveling movies, the giant tsunami waves or the massive explosions or earthquakes, that's kind of the natural disaster part of it. That's kind of where my brain tends to go to.
So you're thinking more like just like Mother Earth, things that like world-ending events.
Yes,
yeah.
and we follow a set of characters who have to struggle through, some sort of global epidemic or some kind of global destruction or catastrophe that has the potential to, destroy the world or destroy a portion of the planet. Or
It's not something you can fight off with like guns in the military. It's
no, it's more global. It's a more huge, a larger scale.
right.
For instance, like maybe zombie movies, in a sense, could be considered disaster movies in a sense, where cities are war torn and it's full of zombies, but the cities are destroyed. There's definitely disaster there, but again, that falls into a different genre for me. Whereas world destruction falls into this category for me. So when I say disaster movie for you, Mike, what comes to mind when you first think about disaster movies?
Will we just give you a name of a movie?
You can?
I mean, I would say, I'm sure it's on the list. I would say 2012.
2012.
I would say like movies like The Day After Tomorrow.
Right.
Actually, kind of what you were saying, like it's world-ending events.
Yeah.
I mean, I think World War Z would qualify. It could be in this, or it could be in the sci-fi area.
That's
It
true.
could go in either, I think.
So that's where the kind of the vagueness of it can kind of come from, like that has a wider definition of what disaster means. But we're going to try to really, in my list, I just try to really scale it down to those movies that maybe, if there was a genre at a Blockbuster Video and it said disaster, on these movies is what you would find underneath that, or at least I think you would find.
I got a word for you.
Go ahead.
Elemental.
Elemental.
Weather.
right,
You know,
right.
it could be something like that.
I got you.
Like DARPA.
This is then this would definitely fall under that list.
Okay.
The first list on the first movie on my list of the top 10 disaster movies is the one that Mike mentioned, 2012. Ironically made in 2009 as a 2012, for those of you alive, which I think it's most of you that's listening to this.
Wait, is there somebody dead listening to us?
No. Maybe they're 9 years old, 10 years old.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Look, you'd be surprised at
Where are you going with this?
recently doing an interview of a football player. The announcers were astonished during an interview with this player, astonished to find out he was born in the year 2000. It shocked them. They were like, "Oh my gosh, you were born!" But you do the math; it's 24 years old.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Right.
So literally, there could be somebody watching or listening to this podcast who is 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, stretching it there a bit. That wasn't born in 2012.
True. You're right.
That's crazy to think,
Yeah.
but it's true. So yes, for those of you that weren't around in 2012 for whatever reason, there was a whole conspiracy about the Aztecs calendar ending and Mayan calendar ending, and the world coming to an end because that calendar ended. So there's a lot of doomsday prophecies around that time, and this movie, which was made in 2009, released in 2009, probably made a year or so before, was playing off that kind of end of world prophecy, that the world would end for some reason in 2012. So this movie stars John Cusack, Amanda Peet, which is those two were in a movie that we previously mentioned in Identity.
Yeah.
Oliver Platt is also in this. This is directed by Roland Emmerich, and Roland is known for films like the aforementioned Independence Day, The Patriot, Godzilla.
The Day After Tomorrow, I think.
The Day After Tomorrow.
Didn't he do Moonfall? Wasn't that also him?
I think so. Yes, you're right. And the interesting thing about Roland that I thought was really for a film, for all of his films that are super special effects heavy. From what I understand, he's not a very tech savvy guy. Which I think is actually kind of great because it means that he's really focusing on the storytelling and the emotion of it, and doesn't get caught up on the special effects aspects. He lets other people do that. I think it benefits his movies a lot, and I think he might be the king of the disaster movies.
Oh, I think so, absolutely.
Yeah, so I and it doesn't get enough credit for that. But 2012 for me, not my favorite disaster movie, but it might be the most accurate definition of what a disaster movie is. There's so much disaster happening on a global scale in this movie It's really a visually eye popping, and places our characters in like crazy scenarios, such as flying, with the runway falling beneath them in an earthquake, or escaping through a city with towers, with skyscrapers that are falling down around you, and the plane has to fly through falling skyscrapers. Insane action.
Yep.
The implosion and explosion of Yosemite National Park and its power keg of a volcano that's on it or whatever, and and then the majority of the Earth being covered in water. But just all different kinds of craziness that's happening. You would maybe see one or two of those events in a movie. That would be its big epic scene. It's like it's every act has something big. There's something big, and then I just don't think it can top it, and it tops it the next one and the next one and the next one, and then a whole adventure that happens throughout to get them to an ending point that ultimately turns out to be, a positive one.
Yeah.
Which is I guess atypical with a disaster movie. Your heroes survive, but. The way they do it and what they have to go through to get there is what part of the journey is, and that's what makes it so much fun. I love these kind of movies. These are exactly the kind of movies that I go to the theater for. I think it is a disservice not to see them on the big screen because they are such epic landscapes and visuals that just seeing them on a massive screen makes it even more massive for yourself.
There's always a certain level of size and scope with these types of movies that you don't really get in like your dramas or your indie films. With these types of movies, it's bigger and better every time.
That's
bigger,
right.
better, bolder. You know what? It's funny. I always wish, because I love this genre as well, this subgenre as well. I always wish they made a world-ending movie or natural disaster movie that didn't have any stars. I don't want recognizable faces because you automatically associate with them from other movies. You more than likely like this person from other roles they played, so you're rooting for them to win, and they're probably gonna live. I want a movie that's just about the disasters, and we get some random people we don't know. I don't want to get attached to the people,
Yeah.
because they're probably gonna win or they're probably gonna live.
You would think that would work because the real stars of the movie are the special effects, are the circumstances that these characters will be put in. Unfortunately, the reality is because it's so special effects laden and heavy, the expense is so big that the people investing want a more guarantee that they're going to get their money back.
Yeah.
The more money you spend, the more money you're going to need to make. In order to do that, you need bankable stars that are going to bring in people.
It's true.
Just through facial recognition.
That's true.
But yes, so that was my number one. And you mentioned my number two already.
Oh, but before we go to that,
Yeah.
when this was really going on in 2012, when you first
Yes.
heard about this, like, were you like, oh, maybe this could be true because they're proving it?
Yeah, I didn't really ever buy much into it. But again, the movie, which was released 3 years before 2012, and it was called 2012, was banking on the apprehension of that date coming.
Yeah.
The anticipation of it. And this could be what happens if the Earth starts to crack apart.
Yeah.
And these disasters everywhere. And so, yes, I wasn't thinking that the end was near in 2012. As much as I was thinking that the Y2K bug was going to get us in 2000,
Yeah.
I didn't bother me.
One thing about this movie is the goal ends up being we have to get to this. Basically, it's an arc, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember thinking, watching how the characters we follow in the film, John Cusack, Amanda Peet, and a couple of others, how they get there. I don't know if I would have made it, man. I don't know if I would have got there.
The best way to describe this movie, man, is a roller coaster.
It is.
It is. You get on, and once the roller coaster starts going, it never stops.
That's true.
So we get to the end of the ride, and it's just a constant up and down, up and down, up and down. It's a thrill ride. So it is like a theme park in a movie.
Yeah, it is for sure.
It's exactly what you want in a disaster movie. Like the acting, the plot. I can forgive all of that because I'm just going for the ride.
Right.
And it's got me swept away in that. The better movie, though, I think the better movie story wise, and not necessarily well. There is it's probably as much, but it's smart. It's a smarter movie, and that's the movie that we already mentioned, number 2 on the list here, The Day After Tomorrow, in 2004, directed by the same man, Roland Emmerich. This one stars Dennis Quaid, a young Jake Gyllenhaal, a young Emma Rossum, and this is a movie that grossed over $500 million.
Man.
Now, 2012 grossed nearly 800 million, so it gives you an idea.
Oh wow. Okay.
These are big, huge movies that audiences, turn out for. Again, 2004. This is as global warming triggers a new ice age. A climatologist embarks on a perilous journey to save his son stranded in New York City. So the main actor, Dennis Quaid, is a researcher that's at first getting ice samples. The digging deep into what looks to be Antarctica or the Arctic up north, and him and his crew are digging for deep down into the earth for ice samples to test, and he uses those skills later in the movie as the Earth begins to go through all of these climate changes, and it really freezes over New York City is the kind of the jewel of the film. And his son is stuck in that, in the midst of that, trying to survive. And so Dennis Quaid and his crew use their Arctic traveling skills to hike into New York City that's frozen over. And there's twists and turns left and right. There's flooding, massive tsunami, tornadoes. Is that tornadoes in California? Is that part of it? I forget if that's not. It might be 2012 I'm thinking of.
I think it's 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they
and then there's-
did a better job of showing the natural disasters in this movie than 2012 did, in my opinion.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
The thing that I took away more from this movie is the relationship between father and son. It's kind of a little bristly at first, and then he is willing to sacrifice everything to get to him, and then his son's burgeoning romantic relationship with Emmy's character, and then him protecting her, and his son being wise enough and smart enough to know when to do certain things, and to take chances, not to take chances. And there's a whole pack of wolves that's involved in some. It's
like on a submarine, right, or some kind of.
No, there's a ship that goes through the streets because they've been flooded.
That's what it was.
And it freezes outside, and there's a flash. There's kind of a flash freeze that happens. You got to be careful out there. I don't know. The characters seem to be a lot more well developed in this movie. I like the storyline.
That's what it was for me too. Yeah.
So it was a great combination with the great special effects, and of course the cover of the whole the poster, the cover of the movie is the Statue of Liberty, like frozen over with icicles coming off the side and stuff. So, but yeah, it's a very good disaster movie. I think story-wise topples 2012, but I still like 2012 where I think it's more action-oriented.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The disaster is a lot. It's like the disaster is like 11, or Day After Tomorrow is more like at a 6 or 7, but the story pushes it over.
Well, with The Day After Tomorrow, everything kind of happens in the beginning, and then like all the destruction, and then it's just really about, okay, now I got to get to my son. Oh, my dad's coming to get us, to help us. 2012, like you said, things kept happening all throughout up until the very end. And even at the end of 2012, they get into the ark or whatever, and that the big flood comes right as it's happening. Right, it's about to take set sail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can see that definitely more action in that.
Definitely, if you've never seen it, it's a must see. If you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch it. It's worth it. But I have an even bigger recommendation for you. I don't think a lot of people have seen that. They must see if they like disaster movies. And we'll get back. That's further in the list.
Okay.
Little tease. It's coming. A must-see disaster movie that probably not a lot of you have heard of. Got to see it. But first, Mike, I'm going to take you back to 1998 because there are 2 back-to-back disaster movies that happened with very similar storylines that was controversial at the time, which one was better. I think clearly one was more flash over substance, but both of them natural disasters involving large asteroids or comets.
Okay, I know one. I don't know the other one. So
Okay, so the one you're thinking of is
Deep Impact.
Deep Impact. So Deep Impact, 1998.
Oh, I know the other one.
Okay, we'll get to that. Tia Leone, Morgan Freeman as the president, the best president ever. Elijah Wood, a member of
Young Elijah
prior
Wood.
to his Lord of the Ring days.
Yep.
And Robert Duvall in a great as a veteran astronaut.
Is this Lily Sobieski? Is she the love interest in this movie?
For who? Oh,
For Elijah
yes,
Wood.
that's right.
Yeah.
Very young.
Very young.
This is directed by Mimi Leder, Leder. She was known for movies like The Pacemaker. I'm sorry, not Pacemaker. The Peacemaker, Pay It Forward, and something called On the Basis of Sex, which I don't remember that movie, but that's what she had directed before. This movie grossed $350 million.
For 1998, that's a big deal.
And the synopsis is the world braces for the impact of a massive comet set to collide with Earth as humanity scrambles to prepare for the catastrophe. So a massive comet set to hit Earth, and that's 1998, and it came out competing with another movie in 1998 called Armageddon.
Yep, that's the one.
Armageddon, again, the synopsis of this movie is a group of oil drillers is sent into space to stop a massive asteroid from crashing into Earth and causing extinction. So both of them dealt with asteroid or comet impacts of the Earth and trying to do something to either deflect it or explode it or, to avoid the catastrophe. But both had very similar villains in this movie. The villain of the movie is the incoming asteroid comet, and they both send people out into space to try to help to either knock it off course or blow it up. And two different ways that they approached this movie. Deep Impact was more about the lives of the people on the ground.
Yeah.
And what, the discovery of the comet, what they did to prepare for the comet, how they decided who would live and who wouldn't.
Yeah, they did.
That's right. The relationship between this woman who wants to be this news anchor and is given this information, discovers this information really accidentally before anyone else, and is given a deal by the president of the United States to keep it quiet as long as she gets the exclusive. So she becomes the anchor woman that she wants to be, might be the world's most famous anchor woman when it comes to this news.
She would be like the
Barbara Walters,
the Lois Lane.
So two different disaster movies having to deal with the same villain, an asteroid or comet coming.
Very unconventional villains, but yeah.
Yeah, and then us going to space, the human race, to go to space to try and break it up or blow it up. But again, Deep Impact dealt with more of the people on the ground, their stories, and particularly the woman who wanted to be the news anchor.
It's
and
more
had to break the
character-driven.
news. Yeah. But it also amps up the action when everything starts, when that first asteroid hits and it goes into the ocean and causes that tsunami, and then you feel the impact firstly of the father and the daughter who are on the beach when that happens and have to give their last words to each other as the tsunami overtakes them. And then you're on the bike with Elijah Wood's character when him and the young woman that you mentioned, that they are with a baby, her holding a baby, they are racing the tsunami to try to get up to a greater elevation to save themselves.
Yep.
And their parents sacrificing themselves and doing all the things.
There's a lot more emotional beats in Deep Impact.
That's right.
Than there are in.
Definitely. I love both movies for different reasons.
The other movie, Armageddon, that's Michael Bay, right?
That is.
Okay.
See, that's more flash than substance for me, but it's good flash. Like it's prime real estate Michael Bay. It's not Transformers Michael Bay. It's more Bad Boys 2 Michael Bay.
You're right.
It's in his, to me, that's in his sweet spot and in his prime. It's all American. It's iconic. His camera movements, the way things are colored. The color grading is a certain way.
Patriotic score that's always in the background.
But it's more comedic too. Like the crew that Bruce Willis puts together, they're super funny.
Great characters.
So we got Bruce Willis in this film. We got Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, Billy Bob Thornton's in this movie. Owen Wilson is in this movie.
Michael Clark Duncan.
Michael Clark Duncan, and they all have Steve Buscemi. They all have great characters. You can see why all of this great talent was attracted to this movie because each one of those guys are like really, it's great characters for them to play. And I don't think at the time a lot of them were like super well known.
Yeah.
But they became well known, not because of this movie necessarily, but certainly lifted their star status to another level probably. But this, the Bruce Willis one is, it really focuses more on the crew that's going up into space. That's the bigger focus of how they are actually going to solve the issue. Where the Deep Impact is more about the people on the ground and preparation for it, as well as the crew. Less time is spent, though, on the crew that's up in space trying to blow up.
Is Ed Harris in this movie? Isn't he one of the astronauts, like the professionals that goes up there with them?
I think you're thinking of Robert Duvall.
You're right. It is Robert Duvall.
Duvall. Yeah.
What did they ask? They asked for something like, if we do this, we want to pay no taxes for the.
That's Armageddon, so that's the Owen Wilson character and the Michael Clark Duncan and stuff. Like they don't want to pay taxes ever again.
So if they come to you with this, say we need you to go up there and do what you do, what's your ask?
I don't know. Oh, what do I ask?
Yeah, what's your demand?
First of all, I don't even know what I'm doing up there. I'm a podcaster. What am I doing up on?
No, but if you're a professional oil driller,
right,
and you're part of this crew, what are you asking for?
Oh, I probably just an obscene amount of money. That way, I don't have to ever. This will be the very last job I take ever.
Ever, yeah.
You know, that'd probably you know, and even the money, like if you survive it. Well, if you don't survive it and they're successful, your name is infamous.
That's true.
You're one of the founding fathers.
You become a legend.
Yeah,
right.
They're naming schools after you, literally.
Yeah.
But if you do it and you get back down, the book deals, the movie deals, the publicity, the speaking engagements alone are going to make you probably wealthy more than you can spend.
You'll be the most famous individual on the planet.
One of them, yeah.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah. But look, the weird thing about these disaster movies is it seems to me that we really hit a sweet spot in disaster movies in the late 90s. You know, like we talked about in another show, we talked about film goes through errors. And we talked about previously on another show about the found footage era. And it feels like there's a disaster movie era that took place in the late 90s. And a lot of these movies that we're going to talk about on this list are from those few 4 or 5 years. The late 90s seemed like there's a lot of people thinking about or a lot of thought put into end of the world or disaster movies. And I think that has to do a lot with the apprehension of the year 2000 coming. You know, not necessarily Y2K, but just the fact that we're entering a new millennium. And that, you know, it's just... there was a certain fear there that sometimes these movies try to like take advantage of. You know what I mean? So, so those were two movies that just happened to be in the same year about the same subject with very similar MacGuffins that you know that I think are going to be compared forever.
But if you had to pick one that you say is better or superior in your opinion?
Yeah, initially it was not even a choice. It was Armageddon. Armageddon was the flash, the bang, the music.
It had that big song.
I don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to. I miss you, baby. I don't want to miss a thing. I don't want to miss a thing. It was the name of that movie. By Aerosmith.
Aerosmith.
It was everywhere. It was everywhere. It was no doubt. As I've gotten years and years, now decades away from these movies, I'm leaning more towards Deep Impact.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Story-wise, it's better. But disaster movie-wise, for the definition of this list, it's Armageddon. Because I think that it's more of the roller coaster there. It might not be the better movie of it, but it's a better disaster movie in my eyes. They spend more time up on the comet itself. There's a lot of treachery up there. They don't flash back down to the earth as much as Deep Impact does.
Right, yeah.
Although I think the disaster part definitely takes place down on the earth, especially after that first one hits.
Mm-hmm.
But and the horror of what that comet is like, especially when the sun hits the sun side of it hits, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And are they going to pull it off? Are they going to make it in time? Who, and not necessarily, sometimes it's not even, are they going to do save the earth? It's more of like, who's going to survive?
Who's going to survive? Yeah.
Yeah. So, falling into that same category, again, the next 4 out of the next 5 movies are made between the years of 96 and 97. So within a 2-year period, 4 disaster movies that are on my list were released. So,
Is the spoof movie, disaster movie, on this list?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just had to ask.
So for me, Twister from 1996
Oh, my God.
falls into this list for
Yes.
me. Again, natural disaster, tornadoes. As someone from Texas, and me and Mike have lived in Texas our whole lives. Not the entire time for me anyway. But pretty much born here and raised here and really back here. So tornadoes are a way of life, unfortunately for us. And
They seem to be getting worse and worse each tornado season that comes around too.
really,
Yeah.
I
to
haven't
me.
noticed that myself. Maybe just because I've had some more harrowing experiences in the past than I have lately. And I think the older that you get, the more you recognize things and try to know when to be wary about it, and you just kind of learn it after a little while. Not that it's 100% foolproof, because you just got to be wrong once.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you learn how to live with the beast if you live in this area. It's worse for people up north of us. It's worse for people that are living in prime. I call it prime tornado alley. Although tornadoes take place and have taken place in every state in the United States and even in Canada, right? And I'm sure in Mexico. We just get more of them here than anyone else, anywhere else. So it is even the hint of a tornado, if you're not in the path of it, but it's around you, is horrifying.
It's dangerous. Yeah.
Because you don't know. You don't know the unpredictability of it, the sound that it makes, the eeriness of when everything goes calm before it
Well, that's the
hits.
thing. Like the trajectory of a tornado isn't just a straight path.
Right.
It can always just randomly go left or right. And then, like you said, like the build up to how it's just eerily silent. And then I've never actually been through one, but I've always heard that it sounds like a train.
Right.
And I never want to hear that sound ever. As a kid, I had a really big fear of tornadoes, and a big factor that had to play in that was the TV show Rescue 911. Because that was a thing that was highlighted on that show often. William Shatner hosted it. Was they always would highlight tornado episodes, or episodes where there was tornadic destruction.
Yeah.
And then the fact that there's different sizes of tornadoes, F1 to F5, and F5 is the worst.
Right.
And that all kind of gets discussed in this movie too. Like, I like what they do in this movie from a scientific perspective. As an audience who knows nothing about it, they give you enough information, high level, to where you can follow along with what's happening.
And there's a new version of this movie that's out, Twisters, which I enjoyed as well. I would compare it to, it's kind of, to me, it felt like Footloose. So Twister from '96 is like the Footloose from the '80s.
Yes,
And the new Twisters that come out is like the new Footloose that came out a few years
it's a
ago.
great comparison.
It just feels like an updated version of something
Yeah.
that you've seen before. But I enjoyed the new Twisters movie more than I did the second Footloose film.
Again, definitely one that if you didn't see on the big screen, you really I feel like you missed out.
Missed out.
Yeah.
That's what part of the major appeal of it. Let's talk about the original Twister for a little bit. It stars Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, rest in peace, Carrie Ells, and Jamie Gertz.
And also Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest in
A
peace.
young Willow
Yeah.
Seymour. Yes, he's so good in that. Now, directed by John DeBont and Jan DeBont. I say John. Jan DeBont. Most famously, he directed one of my favorite movies ever, Speed. He did Lara Croft Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. He did The Haunting. But he was best known as a cinematographer prior to his work on Speed. and that's what got him the gig on Speed, and he's the reason why that movie is so good. Twister grossed nearly $500 million,
It's insane.
and it's basically for those who haven't seen it. I can't imagine you haven't, but a team of storm chasers risk their lives to study tornadoes in the hopes of improving early warning systems. And now that's the amazing thing is that like that they do have the technology that they have now to help warn us and get us prepared, minutes before a potential tornado hits.
The Doppler radar, right?
Precious minutes before, and they since this movie came out in 1996, it's just gotten better and better, I'm sure, and giving us more and more time. And that was the main thing of this. And now the new Twister movie, Twisters, deals with the idea of how you could shut down a tornado by sending an influx of powdered chemicals up it to take the water away from it, or to basically kill it. So the idea of killing a twister is what the new one's really focused on. But
It's a little more far fetched.
I actually I really like the idea, and I'm sure they played with the idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is 1996 Twisters. The idea of having to live through a twister is one thing. The idea of putting yourself intentionally in harm's way of twisters that seemingly throughout the movie get more dangerous as you go. The bigger the tornado is. Now, tornadoes are not measured in the Fujita scale by the size. It's measured by the damage they leave behind. So that's one of the craziest things you'll ever hear is that if a natural disaster event that is not determined by its speed or size, but what the damage that it inflicts. If that's not a villain move, then I've never heard of one. Straight up a villain, but it is like they say in the movie, it's like the finger of God. Like it is a destruction personified.
Yeah.
In a funnel that's, you never know when it's going to show up. There are warning signs. You never know how much damage it's going to do. And you never know if it's going to hit you or skip your house and hit the next thing, like the person over. So
that was a great scene in that movie when she talked about that.
Dude, characters are great. The interaction between the crew is so much fun. At a certain point in the movie, you feel like you're in that caravan with them.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. You absolutely do.
And you're totally invested in all of these characters, and especially the main two and their romantic rekindling through the passion of what they're doing. And then
did you always get the vibe as you got older and understood things? Did you guys feel like they used the tornadoes as a metaphor for their relationship?
I never thought of it like that.
It's destructive, and I'm sure there was some destruction, and that's what took them apart. But it's the destruction that brought them back together as well.
I defined it myself as because of this need to understand the tornado that killed her father. It tortured her to the point where she couldn't have a relationship with anyone else. She couldn't fully give herself over. She wasn't married to him. She was married to the idea of confronting and conquering that tornado. Or the tornado. That's where I thought. So she just didn't have room in her life. Her vendetta was so large that it left no room in her heart for him.
Yeah.
And he just eventually faded away into someone else, and so that doesn't probably bode well for what their future is after that experience.
Exactly.
But who knows? Live and learn, maybe she did. Again, that 96, 97 era, here comes another film. 1997's Dante's Peak.
Oh, the volcano, right?
Starring Pierce Brosnan, Linda Hamilton from Terminator. This is directed by Roger Donaldson. He's known for Species, The Bank Job, The World's Fastest Indian, and this movie grossed just under $200 million.
So that's on the low end.
It's a low end, but this movie, again, the very definition to me of disaster movie. There's this impending monster of a volcano that a beautiful small town has kind of sprouted up near the base of this volcano, Dante's Peak. And it's just nice. It's just, when you think of a kind of a Washington State kind of Pacific.
Yep.
The trees that all look like Christmas trees, and it's very wood oriented. Everything's made of wood, and there's cabins, and people enjoy going to the lake and going on hikes, and it's that kind of small town. It's idyllic in the way that it's presented, and
not the kind of town you would expect anything bad to happen in ever.
yeah. And as much as they live near this massive volcano that has been dormant for however many years, there's an ever-present threat that these people have become so used to that when it does show signs of popping, they ignore. For the most part, many of them ignore it, and not until it's either nearly too late or too late where they're able to escape it. So this is about following James Bond there, Pierce Brosnan. He's a researcher, they call him a volcanologist, who arrives in this small town, and he's warning the residents of this quaint little city, this town, that the dormant volcano is about to erupt and is showing signs. But he's been known in the past to cause panic for warning people prematurely, too early, and when when the volcano doesn't actually blow. He's had that happen to him in the past, but he's also had traumatic experiences when volcanoes have gone off, and it's scarred him. So he's super careful. Careful's not there. Maybe he's too cautious about the warning signs, and so he'll set the alarm early.
Yeah.
He's just like any little thing. Maybe cautious isn't the right word for that. He's just like he's on edge about it. Really
paranoid.
Yeah, he thinks that it just so his boss knows that, he understands what he's going through. So, but he wants more evidence, and they just don't have time to come up with it. And for the most part, the town kind of ignores his warnings until it's too late, and people are rushing to get out of town as the volcano explodes. And then throughout the most action and terrifying part of this movie, the main disaster part of this movie, the buildup is a good 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
When it blows, it is the very definition of what disaster movies are made of. It is running to get out of there. It is all the different things that come with the volcano, the lava flows, the cloud ash, the meteors that the rocks that seem like meteors coming from the sky, falling onto the ground, causing destruction, the massive floods, the people who panic, trying to get out of this town, what they're willing to do to each other, to try to get out, and just a madhouse. And the most horrific scene that I've seen in a movie, maybe ever.
Ever?
Maybe. Not visually, it's not visually violent as much, but it is horrific in the moment. Is that there is a scene, and I think you know what I'm talking about if you've seen this movie. There's a scene where they have to go back up the mountain, they have to go back up the volcano to rescue Linda Hamilton's mother-in-law, who's a grandmother to her children, an older woman, who has decided to stay in her cabin way up on the volcano and ride it out. She didn't realize that it was going to explode. Again, she was not one of the believers. She's been there forever. It's never done anything. It's, ignore all the warning signs. It's not going to go off, and it goes off. And they go to get her in the midst of all this destruction. And they're able to rescue out of it, but they get into a situation where they have to get in a boat to cross a lake in order to make it to the other side. And that lake it's full of acid. Some leak off from the volcano. I forget. It's an early warning sign that a lot of the fish start dying, and the lake becomes acidic.
Oh, that's right.
And so there's a boat that they have to cross this acidic lake in, and the boat is melting. The metal boat is melting as they try to cross the lake, to the point where they have to put their They don't have the momentum to get all the way across. And in a spur of the moment move by the grandmother to save her grandchildren, she jumps out of the boat
Yep.
and begins to push the boat to safety while acid is eating her,
Yeah. Alive. Yeah.
her legs. And it's horrific, and it's, you don't know how they're going to get out of it. And then she just makes this real rash decision. And you're upset at her because all this is happening because of her. Like having to go back for her
Yeah.
and to get her has put all of this entire family in danger. And now we're in this situation, and we just can't quite get us there. Maybe we can think of something else, but before we can do any of that, even have time to do that, she just makes the decision, I'm going to sacrifice myself to push these kids. And it's heroic, but it's also horrific. It's hard to watch.
Yeah.
It's we do see her legs afterwards, but it's not like we see the melting off of skin or anything graphic like that. It's just the situation, and
Yeah.
it's just the emotion of it. And every push that she has, she's screaming, and it's visceral, and it's one of the worst.
So do you
It's one of the worst.
do you judge her because this is your fault, basically? Like we're only up here for you.
No, I don't. The judgment isn't there. I'm mad at her because we came here to save you,
Yeah.
and we can't do it now because you sacrificed yourself. But I just it seemed it wasn't a waste, but it felt like we're putting all of these people in danger just to
Right.
try to save you,
Went through all this for yeah.
and then it couldn't even get, like, in order to even just all of us to make it, you had to sacrifice yourself.
So where do you stand there? Like when, like we just, well, I don't know when you guys will hear this, but in real time, like we just kind of got past Hurricane Milton
Oh,
a
yeah.
week ago.
Yeah.
Like there's always scenarios that you hear about. These people aren't leaving. They're just gonna hunker down and ride it out. They're like, I'm not leaving my home. Like, where do you stand on people that do that kind of thing?
Dude, if it's my family, I want to get them out of there. But I understand it because people cry wolf all the time. It happens all the time. They've been through worse. They think they've been through a lot. They've survived it before. I get it, and it's uncomfortable to leave home. It costs money. Like, people don't have the money a lot of times to have the privilege to go somewhere else and spend a week somewhere, in 2 states over, like. And so they don't have a choice but to try to survive it. And then there's also a thing that's stubborn. I know it's inside myself that says that maybe I'm indestructible. I can get through it. I can work through it. I can survive. Even if I gotta live in a boat for 5 days, I can. You know what I mean? There's always that little thing in the back of my head that we're survivors. We can adapt. We can make it.
Yeah.
There's some of that's also in there too. I don't I don't come up against that at all. I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the thing that I automatically thought of was COVID. People who got the vaccine and people who didn't get the vaccine.
Yeah.
The people who did get the vaccine and lived, they've been proven right. The people that didn't get the vaccine and got sick and were fine or never got sick, they're proven right.
Right. Yeah.
Ultimately, time is going to tell. Maybe, if the people that did get the vaccine are ultimately affected in some way, then those people that refuse to take it are going to be proven right and feel like they were right for not taking it.
Yeah.
That being said, I had people that I know that refused to take it and died from it that I felt like would still be here today
Yeah.
if they had done it. And so if it's a choice between living and then taking it, dying or taking it, then take it,
Right.
obviously. But in their minds, but I don't either one. I don't judge either one. Those people who decided to take it, who decided not to. It's the same way I feel about that. Like, if you decide to stick through it because you've been through it before, you believe in yourself, you may be proven right, but then you might be proven wrong too. But that's the choice you got to make.
Same thing with the grandma here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's just unfortunate that she just they put themselves all in peril to save her, and ultimately she had to sacrifice herself in maybe a worse way.
It was just frustrating for me to watch that scene because like we didn't have to go through this if you had just
I know,
you
but
know
again, it is. She felt bad for making them come up there.
yeah.
And then I could understand her wanting to say, you're not going to die here because of me. You know what I mean? So I'm conflicted about it. But that bothered that's part of the dynamic of that scene, and why I say it's one of the more horrific scenes that I've ever seen.
You're right.
Because you're invested in the family, you're invested in that moment, you're invested in surviving. You're mad at her already that she decided to stay up there, even though she's a sweet old grandma and she was apologetic afterwards.
Yeah.
But then it was just, it was almost, it wasn't useless, but it felt a little bit like, oh, we did all this to get you, and now we're going to lose you anyway.
Yeah. So let me ask you this before we move on.
Yeah.
Let's personalize it.
Yeah.
You got a loved one up on the hill.
Oh, yeah, I'm jumping in the lake.
You're gonna go after them.
Well,
If you know they don't want to go, you're gonna go up there.
oh, am I going to go up? Oh, no, if let's say my mom was up there.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm not leaving. And then she went through all this. I'm going up there. I saw a video yesterday of a guy whose mother was on like the 18th floor of a building. And there was a fire underneath. And the mother was on the phone with the son saying that, there's a fire down there. She was bedridden. She couldn't move.
Oh,
they couldn't get her out, so she couldn't evacuate. She was stuck up there. And so the son goes down to go up to go get her. The firemen won't let him in.
Right.
It was just too packed.
Yeah.
So what does this guy do? Climbs the outside of the building, climbs up 18 stories to get up to her with a pair of fence cutters, so he can cut through the balcony. There's like a little fence around the balcony, so he can cut through there to get to her. Gets up there, and by the time he gets up there, the firefighters have. She's okay, and the firefighters have put out the fire.
Really?
But he was willing. He climbed the outside of an 18-story, he climbed 18 stories on the outside of the building, from balcony to balcony to get up to her.
Wow.
So.
What I thought you were gonna say was he got up there and she was dead.
No. She was alive. She survived.
I'm
Everybody
glad
was
that
good.
it wasn't that way.
And he came down, and then they kind of go in to almost arrest him for doing it, but ultimately let him go.
So, yeah.
Because he did. Because the argument was, what would you do if that was your mom?
Right. Yeah.
So that's the question you're asking me is like, would I go? Would I push
Yeah.
through? Would I go up there to get her? Undoubtedly. Would I push? Would I jump out of a boat, do an acid lake to push you across? Absolutely, because I'm just arrogant enough to think I'm going to survive it. You know what I mean? It's like, I can survive. Look, they've got people running the Special Olympics with no legs.
Right.
Just give me a couple of those paper clips on the bottom of my feet and let's go.
Well, you remember the Cat Williams joke? Hold a little tink tink.
They call me Tink Tink, but I'd be alive and she would be too. That would be the point. You know what I mean?
All right.
She was just older, and in the situation, they can't rush her to medical. Like, that's not going to be a situation that you can do that in. But again, it was the abruptness of the decision. It was the fact that she did it in the movie.
Yeah.
And the whole reason you're up there was her. And then every step she took, she was yelling, and her groaning. Yeah, the stuff of nightmares, man. So you want to talk about horror films that we covered in a different, that might have been fallen to the horror category.
Gosh.
Anyway, Dante's Peak, 1997. Now, definitely one that you should see. I think the preeminent volcano movie in my mind. We do have another volcano movie on the list. I don't think it's as good as Dante's Peak, but I think I can't think of another one that is, as to me, leads on the disaster end of it. As a person who used to live by a volcano, the threat is very real. Let me tell you. Don't watch Dante's Peak and live near a volcano. It's crazy. It's like watching, being on a flight and then watching some kind of a airplane disaster movie on the flight. Like, you don't do that.
Final Destination.
Don't do it.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Don't do that. Now we'll get to the movie that I was teasing prior that I don't think a lot of people have seen. We have seen it. Probably the people that are listening to this, because they're movie buffs like us, have seen it. But I'm surprised that I come across a lot of people and they haven't seen this movie. And I think it's one of the greatest disaster movies ever made. It might be my favorite movie on this list. Maybe.
Okay.
2003.
I'm intrigued already.
2003. I'm going to give you the actors and see if you can come up with it. Stanley Tucci. I'm starting from the back end.
Oh, okay.
Delroy Lindo.
What?
Hilary Swank.
Oh, man, I got nothing. I'm drawing a blank. I don't think I've seen this.
Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
All right, so the movie is called The Core.
all?
From 2003.
I've heard of this movie and never seen it.
Okay, that's a travesty beyond travesties. This is directed by John Emile. This is the guy who did Entrapment.
Love Entrapment.
The Men Who Knew Too Little, The Man Who Knew Too Little, and Copycat. Not Entrapment, a great film. I like Entrapment as well. The other one's not as well known. This movie only grossed $74 million, but to me, it is one of the greatest disaster movies ever. It's a fun ride while also being having all the tropes of a disaster movie. So this is a quick synopsis of this. A team of scientists must travel to the Earth's core to restart its rotation and prevent a global catastrophe. So what kicks off this movie there are some magnetic electricity type issues that start happening. For instance, the space shuttle's off course a bit because of its readings are affected by the magnetism of the Earth, and in this one, there's an EMP that kind of it creates that makes all these people's pacemakers stop within a 10-block area. And so all these people die, and then there's one part of it where there's birds that use the Earth's magnetism to determine their seasonal patterns as they fly, and then there's like a scene out of the Birds movie from Hitchcock, where birds are flying into people, into windows, causing traffic collisions, craziness, because birds are off course because the Earth, basically what's happening is the Earth's core has stopped rotating. And when it does that, it's what eventually it's going to do is going to erode the layer. It's going to cause a lot of electrical storms and different things to happen. The aurora borealis starts showing up in Washington, D.C. because of the things that are happening in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And eventually the protective layer of the Earth that protects us from the solar winds would disintegrate, and then the Earth would basically burn up within a year.
My gosh.
So they have to figure out how to get the core of the Earth restarted, and they come up with this crazy plan to do it. And it basically is like taking a railroad train to the center of the Earth. Crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but that's essentially what it is, and it's serious. It's got all the elements of destruction that you want out of a disaster movie, like 2012, and the day after tomorrow. It's got those elements in it, especially early on, and then it's got the adventure of traveling to the center of Earth's core, and with this group that they put together, the kind of hodgepodge group of.
So they show all this in the core. They do all this. They show you this.
They do it.
Really?
They do it. You got to see this movie. It's so good.
I'm locked in.
And it might be my very most favorite movie in this list, and it's a travesty that more people haven't seen it. Its special effects are great. The crew that gets together, you start to empathize with the group. They don't spend a lot of time with character development. I will say that. It's the storyline is crazy, and I'm sure there's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of missing pieces in this of how things work. But if just go along for the ride, just go along for the disaster ride, and suspend any times of trying to figure out where they went wrong or where science doesn't fit. Suspend all that. Just go for the ride, and the adventure. It's like going into space, but into the Earth. It's really good.
Let me ask you this, because you've seen it and I haven't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm definitely going to check this out.
Yes.
In your opinion, have you ever thought about maybe why this movie wasn't as successful as the rest?
Again, there was a window for the disaster movie, and it seemed to hinge on the apprehension of something coming up. So the year 2000 is coming up, 96, 97, 98, there's a bunch of disaster movies that do well. 2012 is coming up. In 2009, the movie 2012 comes up, and that does well. But the in-between periods, we've seen Skyscraper, the movie, or San Andreas is a disaster movie by The Rock. That was like 2016, 2017. Just okay. Just didn't, not a big success. Just okay. Eye candy.
So you think it's all about timing?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just taking advantage of the times. And look, 2003, I know maybe that just another thing was hot. Maybe it was found footage that was hot at the time, or something else was hot. It just missed. Part of it also is that Hillary Swank was young. She hadn't done Million Dollar Baby. Never that. Not that she was ever a big box office draw. The main actor in this is young Aaron Eckhart.
Right.
He never became the thing that I think that people wanted him to become. But it had a great supporting cast, man. Stanley Tucci. They surrounded these guys with really great actors.
It sounds like a movie. But it sounds like a movie that the whole cast are supporting actors. That they're all supporting. There's no.
Maybe, but Bruce Greenwood is in this movie.
Oh, is it? Okay.
He's the commander of the ship.
That's fitting.
And Hillary Swank's the young up and coming commander. Aaron Eckhart, he plays the scientist. He has a specific name, but he's kind of one of a couple scientists that are on there. And look, the thing that this movie is not lacking for anything to me. Like the special effects still stand up for me. The action's still good. If there's one thing that I would say that was lacking in the movie, it's just not as much character development, potentially. But again, disaster movies aren't really made for that. I like it when it comes along, but the ride is the ride. That's the thing on the thing. You just get on the ride and you go for a spin, and that's what this is. Although I think it's very intriguing and very different from a lot of disaster movies. It definitely does have the outer disasters that happen. The city's getting destructed, and the lightning strikes. A lightning strike basically destroys Rome, and and it's got all the big effects that you want. But then when you go on the journey to go into the earth, that's something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And to do it on a really what looks to be like a high-speed train to get down there in time, and then what they have to do in order to make or try to make the Earth's inner core start respinning again. There's some challenges they've got to go through. So you don't know. Again, it's like the other movies. Probably have a good sense that if it's going to happen or not, but also you don't know how, and you don't know who's going to be left after. And so you go on this ride with these characters. So a lot of the movie, the first part of the movie is about all the destruction that's happening around. The second part of the movie is let's figuring out and solving it.
Okay.
And going into the earth. So if you love Journey of the Center of the Earth, it's probably similar to kind of, they're not discovering new cities or animals or anything like that. But although this probably doesn't hold up in science, it feels like a very scientific approach of how we would do it if something like this happened.
All right, I'll have to go listen.
So The Core, check it out. To me, I think I watched it recently, and I think it was on Paramount Plus. So. Okay, continuing our list now. Back into that 97, 96 range. This was made in 97 or released in 97. This is the same year as Dante's Peak. Very similar to what happened with, Armageddon and Deep Impact the year before. Two similar storylines, but two different movies. This movie is actually called Volcano from 1997, and the main actor of this is Tommy Lee Jones, and Heish is the female lead in this one. Gabby Hoffman is in this, and Don Cheadle is in this one.
Ooh, wow.
Directed by Mick Jackson. He did The Bodyguard.
I thought you were to say Mick Jagger.
No, Mick Jackson. He did The Bodyguard, L.A. Story, Temple Grandin. I don't know what Temple Grandin is, but I know the other two. Grossed $122 million. Dante's Peak, $178. Dante's Peak made more money, but it had, I think, a bigger bankable star with Pierce Brosnan than Tommy Lee Jones. Although Tommy Lee Jones is a great actor.
That was 97?
Both in 97.
Okay.
This is the lesser known of the two, but the real crux or the difference about this movie from Dante's Peak is where Dante's Peak is this volcano that they're living on, that there's an ever-present threat of. In the movie Volcano from 1997, is that a volcano eruption takes place underneath Los Angeles and forces the city and its city official Tommy Lee Jones to lead efforts to stop the molten lava from destroying the city. So they go to the tar pits that are in LA, and they kind of make that the key focal point of volcanic activity. And so the idea of it is what happens if a volcano erupts, an unknown volcano or a dormant volcano, or the earth basically erupts in the midst of a major city.
Do you know if this is fiction? Is there really a volcano under?
There's definitely some things going on there with the pit, and there's some I don't know the science behind it.
So there probably is some of this is based in reality.
Yeah, I think at a certain level, although it's more unlikely with California and the trenches that it has, and always the ever-present threat of it breaking up. There's always that talk about one day there's going to be a big earthquake, and then all of a sudden the Earth's going to crack open and California's going to go in the ocean.
The tectonic plates.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what they're dealing off the idea of, and I might be wrong, but they're dealing off of, because it's such a fragile place, that there could be some seepage at any point anywhere that could create a volcano.
That makes sense.
How is maybe there's something so dormant that they don't know about. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie.
Okay.
But I remember it being the competition between the two, the Dante's Peak and the volcano, and I remember it being two distinctly different kinds of movie, because this is really more about how to manage a city that's seeing a natural disaster.
Right.
So it falls on this list clearly because it has the disaster part of it covered, because lava flows and what lava does to everything, which it melts everything, and how they kind of work to redirect that lava flow and work together as a city. So basically, Tommy Lee Jones and Don Cheadle, they work in a department that I'm sure it's a real department, but it is basically manage all the city's resources.
Okay.
Especially specifically like in emergency situations. So that you follow them, and specifically Tommy Lee Jones, around to like try to figure out how to deal with the destruction that's happening.
So they're specialists, but they actually work in LA. They're not like from somebody else, somewhere else.
They're part of the city.
Okay.
Like he's like, if I remember right, he's like coming off vacation, and it's just kind of like normally they deal with like traffic jams and different kind of city things, and not so much not with volcanoes, but they've got to figure out a way to organize this and organize the fire departments, the police departments to save as many people as possible.
Okay.
But the destruction part of it, so it's a weird combination of.
Yeah, it is.
But he's like Indiana Jones, like he's in the midst of the action. He's not doing it all by phone. That's more Don Cheadle. He's like back at home base, and then Tommy Lee Jones is like boots on the ground,
right,
pulling dual bulldozers over to do this and that, and then, like he's saving people, and like he's so it's like all the actions with him and after all the initial destruction, but. Again, that same time period, 96, 97, all these disaster movies, and then things would get hot. So the thing I think is, and I think I remember this confirming this, is that there were just similar scripts for Armageddon and Deep Impact, and then when one script got taken by one company to be made, and another one jumped on the same boat with a similar script.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing happened with the volcano trend. So somebody saw that Dante's Peak or Volcano was picked up, or vice versa, and then another company jumped on it to try and take advantage of the same momentum. But again, they're all riding the same disaster train at the same time. So volcano, serviceable, destruction. Probably on the edge of this list or not. Like making it on this list or not, but it's there based on the things that I looked at, other comparable things.
Yeah.
If we started throwing in things like Independence Day or things that are more like sci-fi or more zombie-ish, the volcano's probably off this list. But if we're sticking with more natural disasters, which it kind of was when I made this, I think volcano's there.
Okay.
Because of the natural disasters.
All right. I would say so far of the list you've gone through, that's probably going to be the one I would least likely go watch.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty generic.
I agree.
But the fact that Don Cheadle's in it, and Tommy Lee Jones is, 3 years after his Oscar win?
Right.
For The Fugitive? Maybe one day.
Yeah, I do. And I like Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, I never hear anyone talk about this movie, though, ever.
Yeah, Volcano. No, they don't talk about it. And it, again, there are plenty of other movies that are on this list I would recommend above it. But it is... When you go into the disaster category of natural disasters, I could have included some things that are like from the 70s or the 50s. The Towering Inferno was one that I saw a
Yeah.
lot of people talk about. I just tend to lean more towards this time period with it, maybe because of my age or when I was exposed to it. To me, those were dated and they were old, and they tried to be redone and not done as I haven't liked them as much. But these, to me, if I've got to come up with a top 10 list, these fall into it. And look, the next one for me is going to be controversial because it's not necessarily natural disaster, although it was caused by something that was in nature. But I just felt like the public impact of it was so large that I wanted to include it. It took place on the water.
I think I know what this is.
It got hit by an iceberg, and it's definitely a disaster
Oh,
movie.
okay.
And that's Titanic from '97. Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, Kathy Bates, directed by, of course, James Cameron. Made an insane amount of money. Was for the longest time the highest grossing film ever. 2.2.
You love to throw a little curveball
billion.
on your list.
This is my curveball.
Yeah.
I noticed in other lists, and I was like, is that really a disaster movie? At the end of the day, it's not necessarily a natural disaster movie, although the nature does cause the destruction.
Well, I mean, but
But it's not on a continent. It's not on a it's not a
the
city.
captain, he didn't gauge properly. Like, he didn't realize how big the iceberg was. That's more user error, right?
Well, yeah, but also the construction of the Titanic. Something about that was also a part of it. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but I will say that the Titanic was so big at the time that it almost felt like a city within itself.
Mm-hmm.
And a floating city that gets sunk by an iceberg does kind of fit that disaster category. Certainly a disaster. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
happened to the Titanic,
And people died.
based
yeah.
on a real event, that was certainly a national tragedy and disaster. Whether that means it's a disaster movie or not, that's the thing that's kind of up in the air. Like the most recently, the submergible. That
Oh,
died
yeah.
with the billionaires or that were in it. If they made a movie of that, would that be considered a natural disaster? That fall in the same category? Titanic, does it matter the amount of people or how large the ship was? All can be argued. Totally understand. Make this number 11 if you want to, but I included Titanic in it because it does have. There's definitely an element of nature in this. Being on the water is treacherous, particularly in this situation. Hitting the iceberg is the cause of the issues that they have. It sparks the disaster that takes place. It's the cause of the disaster that takes place, and then there's just it's one of the greatest movies ever made. One, box office wise, anyway, it is.
But what do you say though?
Yeah, I do think
Okay,
it's one.
okay.
I don't not one that I like to revisit a lot.
I was gonna ask you, how many times have you seen it?
A handful,
Okay.
not very often, because look, if you're watching television and that the Titanic comes up, are you watching it?
Well, it would depend on what part it's at, right? Because you can say once they hit the iceberg, I might stay throughout the rest of the movie at that point.
It was a very impactful movie. It was a great movie. I remember watching it in theaters and loving it. I thought it was great. I was late on the board of it too. I was probably 3 months after release before I saw it.
But it was still in theaters though, right?
Yeah,
Back then.
of course, because it ran for 6 months, and I caught it. I think alone in a theater in midday, just on a whim to go see it.
When you watched it, did you feel like, you're like, okay, I get it?
Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily like I'm a little fascinated by the Titanic story. So, but the romantic end of it, and it didn't really appeal to me as much initially. But after seeing it, I fell in love with it. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. I still think it's a great movie. Whether it's a disaster movie, that can be debated, but certainly disaster due to natural elements or elemental could be argued.
Well, so for me with that movie, because I have this fear of water, it was like I put myself in that situation. Okay,
Yeah,
I have
the
a fear of
sinking.
water, and then the sinking
Oh my
part of
gosh,
it.
yeah.
And then once the power goes out on the ship, it's just black out there.
Yes.
That was terrifying for me to watch that.
Spookiness of the band still playing as it's going down. The fact that we're men might also play into part of that, because if we put ourselves in the shoes of the passengers, we're riding that thing down.
Yeah.
Probably. Like, we're not going to be the one in the lifeboat that's going off. I'm going to be the one trying to find the door that what's her name is on. I was like, it could carry two. What's
Right.
wrong with two?
Everybody agrees to get carried two people. Everybody says that.
All right, so these next two, I think, are a little bit more out there. We might not have even seen both of these, but
What number are we at, by the way?
we are at number 10
Okay.
and 11.
Let's say, you're not giving me numbers, so I have no idea where we
I'm
are.
sorry. Number 9 was Titanic.
Okay.
So number 10 came to me late in the creation of this list because it is not presented as a disaster movie. It's not presented as a natural disaster movie. It is presented as a mystery. But it is ultimately one of the better disaster movies that nobody's seen, I think. Because wasn't marketed as a disaster movie. It was marketed as a mystery of a professor who decrypts and decodes a cryptic message from the past that somehow is able to predict disasters in the future. So this stars Nicolas Cage, Rose Byrne, and is directed by Alex Proyas.
Oh, I love this movie.
This is from 2009. This is called Knowing.
The movie terrified me when I watched it. I'm not gonna lie to you, man.
Right. Alex Proyas is the director of The Crow, the original The Crow, Dark City, and I, Robot. So this is a guy who I think he has a style that would lean into this. And the fact that it isn't a traditional disaster movie is a credit to him because of the things that he's done in the past. So the idea behind this, the way that I was presented this movie, as Nicolas plays a character that discovers this thing that seems to predict when bad things are going to happen. And ultimately, remind me what you remember of this film as well.
Very little, because I saw it in the theater when it came out, and that was it.
Right. And it's just, there's encoded in this message that he finds these predictors of bad things that are happening.
Isn't it in like a time capsule?
Yes.
Okay.
And it predicts like a plane crash
Yes.
that actually has to go to. Like he goes to where it's supposed to be. And anyway, the whole idea behind this movie, I don't know if I should even ruin it, dude, for these people that are watching.
Yeah, I know, man.
Okay, we want you to watch this movie, so I'm not going to ruin it. But it's called The Knowing.
There's elements to this
Nicolas
movie,
Cage.
without spoiling it again,
Yes.
there's elements to this movie that I was kind of taken aback by in a weird way. Like there's these beings that show up.
Yeah.
And that's really all I will say. But
they're infatuated with his son.
Yes.
And there's something about that connection there. And you do get the answers by the end of it, but there's a whole mystery behind that, and it feels almost not these. I don't even know if I would call them beings, but they felt almost like Men in Black or
that's more
like
accurate.
shady government things.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not really sure what it is or what they are, but I will tell you this: that everything that's in this movie that's telling you that it's not a disaster movie is leading up to the disaster movie part of this.
Yeah.
And so, trust me, it is a disaster movie underneath, but it is masquerading as a mystery.
The last few minutes are shocking. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Seeing this on the big screen, I
It
was
is.
like, "Whoa!"
It is such a concept beyond what you think it is that it takes you aback at first. And you know what? I was really impressed how they carried it out all the way to the end.
So was I.
A lot of them would have just ended at what you would think is kind of a natural endpoint to save money or not have to do a bunch of special effects or whatever. No, they take this out to the next level, and they and that's great because it helps cement it for me. That the idea of this, it really gave me a grasp of now I really understand what they were doing.
Right.
But the mystery that Nick Cage has to unfold all the way up. It's confusing, and you don't know what's going on, just like him. And then when you finally figure it out near the end of the film, you kind of realize what was taking place. And you get an answer.
You do.
So that's the good part. Sometimes some of these movies like this would often lead to the audiences. They get to decide kind of what was happening. I hate that.
I know you hate that.
I hate that. So this won't leave you like that. It is a sneaky disaster film, but one that's worth watching. 2009, Knowing, not the Knowing. It's just Knowing. and it's with Nicolas Cage. So if you need, those are the two things that you need to know in order to watch it. The name is Knowing, and it's Nicolas Cage. You put those two things together, you'll find it online. The last movie on my list stars a very young Spider-Man.
Oh, this is a great choice and a great way to end the episode. Wow.
And this is called The Impossible, which I hate the name, first of all, because it doesn't say what it's about. It should be
But
called The Tsunami.
do you want it to? Nah, I think that's too on the nose.
Well, but The
Like
Impossible is...
the movie Volcano, it's too on the nose.
Okay, agreed, but The Impossible is too generic for what this is. I mean, if you give me a list of movie names and you told me to pick out which one had the natural disaster in it, The Impossible would not be one of them. The Impossible sounds like a boxing movie from the 80s where this guy that shouldn't be able to be champion becomes champion.
Well, you know why though? This movie isn't really so much about the natural disaster aspect of the film. It's about the impossible task that these characters have to go through.
Right.
So it's more about that.
So let's first of all preface it. 2012, called The Impossible, starring Naomi Watts, Ewan McGregor, and a very young Tom Holland. This is directed by J.A. Bonya, who also did Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, The Orphanage. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah,
And
I've
Monster
heard of it.
Calls. I haven't heard of that.
I've heard of that too.
This movie ended up making nearly $200 million.
I feel like it should have made more, but
And let's not kid ourselves. The reason why this movie made $200 million was the whole initial, the thing that really sets the movie off, which is the tsunami, which is based on a true story.
true story, yeah.
This is a family that's vacationing in Thailand, and it turns into a harrowing fight for survival after they are separated by the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Again, I don't care for the title because it doesn't really, to me, the whole preface of this movie, the whole reason for this movie is not tsunami and how they're potentially either not surviving or surviving it, right? And they're separated as two young children, a husband and wife, and the two young children go vacationing, and while on vacation, is it three? Is it three? It might be three. And very young child.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then they are separated due to a tsunami that seemingly no one knows is going to happen, and they're not prepared for, or they weren't warned about.
Mm-hmm.
And then it proceeds to happen, and it's terrifying, and it's maybe the more horrific thing in this movie is the aftermath
It is.
and their separation and trying to find each other.
The tsunami hits within the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, very early.
Yeah.
And it's, I think most of us think we just get to high ground and we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be plenty of warning before a tsunami hits.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
We'll notice the water receding and know that, kind of know that, that's a sign that it's coming back harder. No, maybe that wasn't well known prior to this movie or the event. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I kicked you. Prior to the events of this movie or whatever, I know it now.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I ever see the oceans recede and I'm starting seeing fish, I'm getting out of there. That's not even a question. I'm jumping out of that situation. Maybe because this movie educated us about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we wouldn't normally not know that. We don't live on the ocean. Why would we know it? But in this particular situation, the thing that I don't think a lot of people think about is the cuts and the beating of not what the water does to you, but what the water brings with it when it comes rushing past you. Cars and pieces of metal and glass, and it's all swirling in that water that these people are being bombarded with. And
When they show you what happens to Naomi Watts underwater, what she gets hit with and how, it was brutal. It was realistic. It was tough to watch.
And there's another movie with Matt Damon, I think it's called Hereafter, that also dealt with a similar tsunami. I just remember that there being a lot of underwater things that are happening with that. But this is the better of the two in the sense that this is based on a real life event. And you really feel the impact of that tsunami. I don't think those that have not been a part of it or don't live near the ocean and have experienced this, maybe we don't realize the devastation that a tsunami brings. And look, we talked about Hurricane Milton before. Like there had to be similar things
Yeah.
that were happening in that to this, and you could easily equate disaster with what's happening there, which certainly a disaster with what happened with Milton, to what happened here. I'm sure thousands of people lost their lives in this, just based on what we saw in the movie and how devastating it was, and one of the bigger disaster part of the movie is the aftermath and the lack of help, because they're on a
Well, they made it like a resort,
country,
though.
at a
But
resort,
still,
right?
yeah.
But everything around you is destroyed, so it's not like there's a hospital around the corner to help you. And for a large part of this movie, they have to fend for themselves and figure out a way to survive this terrific event. So So on the list, near the bottom of the list, because the destruction is kind of limited to one area. The disaster is certainly massive. It's not like 2012 where there's disasters happening all over the planet and it's breaking apart, or even the core where things are happening all around the planet. We have to go on this kind of adventure down to the center of the earth. It's not that kind of spectacle. This is more almost like, it's not a documentary, but it could be. It could, like, it has a sense of it. Like, you could get a feel of what it would be like to be in that, and it's heartbreaking.
This is one of the movies that, I guess you wouldn't see a lot of like camera footage of, because everyone would have lost their cameras.
Maybe there's probably people that were on high ground that were able to, the buildings were able to survive it, and then maybe they would do. That's probably, I would have suspected.
This movie was a tough watch, by the way.
It is. It's a hard one.
I watched it once, and I've spoken to other people who have seen it, and they're like, "This is a one and done." Not because it's not good. It's because it's what it portrays. Like, real people went through this.
It's difficult.
And
difficult to watch.
Spoiler alert! But I thought for sure Naomi Watts was going to die in this movie. I thought for sure she was a goner.
So over this list, and that one of the reasons why I put that the impossible on the list was because it dealt with a natural disaster, obviously a tsunami, but in a tsunami in a different way, in a more realistic way. In other movies that we have in here, they have tsunamis, but it's more spectacle. It's more like taking over cities, and not necessarily on the ground level necessarily. And this one focused on a family that had to go through all of that and the aftermath. Whereas it is more of like just part of a small part of a larger special effects bonanza in the other movies. But I think through this list, we're dealing with disasters that come from space, disasters of our planet shifting its poles. It's changing, day after tomorrow. So it's making, it's covering part of the Earth in snow and ice that typically aren't. We're dealing with natural disasters like twisters, like tornadoes, and then we're dealing with volcanoes. We're even dealing with being on the sea and getting hit by an iceberg, right, with the Titanic. All different kind of things, and then we threw in some curveballs for you as well, like knowing, and a sneaky disaster film, and then clearly a movie that I think everyone listening should watch, The Core. You need to go see it. So this list had a little bit of everything. And Mike, now that we've done the list, what are your thoughts about these selections?
I like all the choices. I was surprised you were able to come up with a full list of 11. Even though I technically I wouldn't count Titanic.
Yeah.
But the other 10, I was surprised. There were, like I said at the beginning, I didn't think you could get to 10 natural disaster movies, but you found a way to get 10.
Right.
And I was surprised.
And then we didn't even breach into like movies prior to 1990. Like, so we didn't even, there's nothing before 1990 really of disaster movies.
I mean, if there are, I haven't even seen them.
I know.
So.
I know. But there you go, folks. That's our list of our specifically my top 10 disaster movies.
Hey man, Mulley coming in saving the day, man.
Giving it clutch.
Mike wasn't prepared, but Mulley was like, "I got us."
No, I always put too many on here anyway. He often gives me grief for having too many. This time he loved it. So expect me to keep coming over.
You know what's funny? This time I got to fully experience this podcast actually as a listener. It was just a different experience for me because I'm sitting in front of you. Listeners at home, they only experience this through audio. So it was a different experience to sit as your co-host and basically just like listen to you break these down. And I was like, wow, these are actually really good breakdowns. And you sold me on the core.
Gotta see it.
And you reminded me. I forgot about knowing because you get to a point where you see so many movies.
Yeah.
You start forgetting ones you've seen in the past. Especially if you only saw it once, like I did with Knowing. And as soon as you brought that up, I instantly remembered the ending that we didn't spoil. Because again, I recommend that to you guys as well.
It is a disaster movie.
I need to go watch that again.
Movie. It starts. It's slow with the disasters, but it builds. All right, folks. Thank you once again. Thank you for listening. That's been another one in the books here for the Top 10 Movie Podcast with Mike and Mulley. I am Mulley. He is Mike, and we want to encourage you. Please go out and listen to some of the other episodes. We've got a plethora of episodes out right now, and maybe you've missed a couple here. I know that we just put up one about the top 10 movies that are criminally overrated. And that's one that just recently went up on all of our streaming platforms. Go check that one out if you haven't. We've got plenty coming down the pipe for you as well as we begin to wrap up season 1 for us here. And I will say this, Mike, we've got the...
this one might actually be season 2, but okay.
Oh, we might go season... Well, then you'll need to edit that. Once again, before we go, I do have to remind you, please reach out to us. Let us know what you thought of this episode. And is there a disaster movie or two that we missed that's on your list? Let us know. Let us know through our social media. Reach back out to us and let us know what we should have included on the list or what your top 10 list is. We always love seeing those. We've got a handful of those that have come through and we've really enjoyed them and interacted with you guys. Please continue to do so and through our various streaming platforms. And social media, I mentioned we're on X, formerly Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And then we're streaming on almost everything you could think of. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spreaker, a whole list of other things, streaming platforms as well.
My own personal YouTube channel, which is...
I always forget to mention that, don't
Mike on the Mike 80. That is Mike. Wait, how do you spell it? MikeOnthemic 80. Yes.
All right. So check out all of our shows are going on that YouTube channel as well. And the great thing about the YouTube channel is that you can comment directly to those YouTube videos, and you don't have to go to social media. You can do it right there on the YouTube videos, and we will interact.
We already had some comments.
Yes, we have.
Several people on different episodes. Tiffany, I'm expecting you to definitely come in and say, "Oh, you guys forgot to mention this natural disaster." She always does that.
We're looking forward to it. That's it. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Mike, hit it. Outro us.
This is really your episode. For once, maybe we should do another. You outro this time, I think.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this could have easily been a disaster of a disaster list, but luckily, I think I saved the day. So all praise to me for my efforts. But no, I still could not do this without the interaction between me and Mike. And the basis of this podcast has always been our friendship. And we're just kind of letting you guys in on what we used to do without any microphone.
True.
This is what we used to do back in the day, just eating lunch and having great movie conversations. So we're glad that you guys can tag along with us, scooch over into the booth with us and be part of this conversation.
Good.
All right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Please continue to support us and listen, and we'll see you next time.
Peace, y'all.